welcome to Broken Entertainment. So there's an article here on Bounding into Comics that's talking about the potential fall off of the Mandalorian and the Clone Wars after Gina Carano was fired. And I want to take a look at it. I think it's kind of interesting, and there are some interesting trends involved, but I don't think we're really going to know anything until the next season of The Mandalorian comes around. I think it's actually more interesting that the Clone Wars fell off than the Mandalorian, because the Clone Wars isn't in any way directly tied to Gina Carano or her firing, but it is consistently a very popular show. So to see it kind of collapse in the Disney Plus ratings is very interesting. And these aren't even ratings, really. It's keeping track of what's been trending on their site. And some of it's, you can kind of dismiss some of it. So we'll get into it and why I think it's interesting, but where ultimately we don't know what's going on yet. We know there was a lot of backlash on it online, but how much of that's going to translate into an actual impact on Disney Plus or on the Star Wars franchise in general, we just don't have an answer yet. But this may be something of an early indicator. So it says The Mandalorian and Star Wars The Clone Wars are quickly falling off Disney Plus's trending tab following the firing of Gina Carano. If you're not familiar with Disney Plus, the streaming platform has a trending tab where they presumably list out the most popular shows and movies on their platform. Yeah, I can confirm that, unless Disney is manipulating it somehow, which is always possible. It looks like this on the Disney Plus homepage and appears to rank them based on user behavior. In the image below, WandaVision is ranked at the top because it's probably the most watched show on the platform. Yeah, definitely. The website What's on Disney Plus has actually been tracking the trending tab week by week and listing out what the popular shows and movies are. Their charts reveal that interest in Star Wars, specifically The Mandalorian and the Clone Wars, has plummeted since Disney and Lucasfilm unceremoniously fired Gina Carano by a press statement that quickly went viral over social media. Not only did they fire her, they didn't tell her they were firing her, which, there are more cowardly acts in business, but that's up there. What's on Disney Plus reports The Mandalorian was the last at the top trending spot on Disney Plus in their chart for the week ending Sunday, December 20th, 2020. Season 2 finale aired on December 18th. That makes sense. Not only was The Mandalorian the top spot, but Star Wars The Clone Wars was ranked 4th, and no other Star Wars properties were on the list. They don't put a whole lot of emphasis on that in this article, but that's really interesting. I think no other Star Wars properties even being on the top list on Disney Plus when they have all the Star Wars properties really tells you how much people have turned away from this franchise as a whole. Not just as a result of Gina Carano, but as a result of Disney's handling of things, the way they treat their fans. You tell enough people that if you don't like their product, they're horrible people, and eventually everybody just walks away. So for the week ending December 27th, The Mandalorian would slip one spot to second behind newcomer Soul. The Clone Wars would fall at tonight. That makes sense. There's a new movie out. People want to watch it. Mandalorian would maintain its rank at number 2 for the week ending January 3rd, and the Clone Wars would jump back to the 4th. This really speaks to the strength of the Clone Wars and its fandom, because the Clone Wars cartoon is not new. Yes, it has a new season that came out, but that came out a while ago, and it's been wrapped for a long time. And people just keep going back. It's the last Star Wars prior to The Mandalorian that people just kept going back to over and over again. The stories are so good. The characters are so good. People like to watch that journey over and over again. And Disney hasn't figured this out. Disney has not figured out how to do that. Okay, they did not make the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars was made prior to Disney buying them. And in one of their delightfully brilliant moves when they bought the franchise, they canceled the Clone Wars before it was actually over. That's why they did this other season. And they just don't understand it. They don't understand why their stuff isn't working, but the Clone Wars being over and done with and watched just keeps getting watched. I mean, it's fourth on their top 10 list. It's not anymore, but it was well after it had ended. So, if you're Disney, you got to be going, why is this happening, and why is our stuff not working? It reminds me of the former head of DC Comics, when asked about comic sales, had complained that they're selling more of the old stuff than their new stuff. Well, there might be a reason for that. You think? So anyway, the next week, ending January 10th, The Mandalorian was still second behind Soul. Meanwhile, The Clone Wars would fall to 7th. And then the week ending January 17th, The Mandalorian would still be in second, but this time behind WandaVision. So you see that The Mandalorian, going up to its season finale and after, maintains this spot very high up in the ratings. I call them ratings, but the trending charts. Clone Wars would fall to a spot to 8th. So the Clone Wars also still in the top 10. The Mandalorian would slip 2 spots to 4th for this week, ending January 24th. It would fall behind The Simpsons and newcomer Pixar Popcorn. The Clone Wars stayed steady at 8th. 2 weeks before Carano was fired, What's on Disney Plus reported for the week ending in January 30th, 2021, Mandalorian was ranked 5th. It was behind WandaVision, Dinosaurs, Mickey Mouse, Clubhouse, and The Simpsons. As for the Clone Wars, it fell to 11th behind The Mandalorian, Moana. Moana is also one of those ones that's just constantly at the top, right? And it's because it's just so good. But that's a topic I'll save for another video. But really a true masterpiece. Probably the last one they'll ever do. The only other Star Wars property on the list was Star Wars Rebels, ranked 23rd. That's about right. A lot of people don't like Rebels. Personally, I do. But if I'm going to pick a Star Wars show to rewatch all the time, it's going to be the Clone Wars. Week ending February 7th, the week right before Carano was fired, The Mandalorian was back up to 4th, and The Clone Wars was in 8th. The week after Carano was fired, the rankings were still pretty steady. However, The Mandalorian plummeted 5 spots to 10th for the week ending February 21st. Now here's where it gets kind of tricky. You go, well, it's never fallen that far that fast. Obviously that has nothing to do with Gina Carano being fired, but the question is, does it? Because it was beat out by WandaVision, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, newcomer Flora and Ulysses, The Simpsons, newcomer The Muppet Show, newcomer Book of Life, Moana, Bluey, and Jessie. So you've got 3 new shows. Those are likely to spark some additional interest in people checking them out. Now, we know that The Muppet Show was a complete disaster. Big surprise there. For the week of February 28th, The Mandalorian is no longer in the top 10. It has fallen all the way to 17th. In fact, Clone Wars is actually ahead of it at 16th. So, what beat it? The 2 shows were beat by WandaVision, Flora and Ulysses, Book of Life, The Muppet Show, Newcomer Myth, A Frozen Tale, cheaper by the dozen. Newcomer Secrets of Sulphur Spring, cheaper by the dozen too. Really? The Simpsons, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, Bluey, Moana, Frozen, Frozen 2, and Coco. Now, I've seen some people on this already say, well, yeah, it went down, but that's because a whole bunch of new stuff came on. Well, let's actually really look at this. So, you're talking about, a week after? Yeah, a week later after after 3 new shows come up, those 3 shows are still in their spots. So those shows in the second week do not push The Mandalorian down. So what does? New arrival, myth of Frozen Tale. Okay. Cheaper by the dozen. I mean, cheaper by the dozen is not new, okay? And to me, it's not even that good. All right? But you lost to cheaper by the dozen. Let's get real, okay? You lost to, I'll give them some leeway with Myth of Frozen Tale because Frozen has a big fan base and a lot of kids like to watch it. But cheaper by the dozen? Really? And then newcomer Secrets of Sulphur Spring. I've never heard of that. I don't think that's probably to have been a big draw. I mean, obviously it's a big enough draw to show up on this list, but cheaper by the dozen too. It's bad enough to lose to cheaper by the dozen, but you lose to cheaper by the dozen too. Gee, The Simpsons, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, Bluey, Moana. Do you see these same names come up over and over and over again? Moana, 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 Frozen, Frozen, Frozen. Never heard of Bluey. The Simpsons over and over and over again in these top spots. Frozen 2 and Coco. So, so there's the argument. Okay, well, The Mandalorian just got pushed down because all this new stuff came out and The Mandalorian's season has been over for a while. And that will naturally lose some interest. But that's a pretty sharp drop really quick. Normally what you would see is something drop gradually. Okay, as people start to just say, okay, I've already watched it, whatever. Not 5 spots. And you could say, well, these people in the comment section that I'm referring to said, well, it lost out to new stuff. Okay, but let's analyze the new stuff a little bit. It had already been pushed down by Flora and Ulysses, The Book of Life, The Muppet Show. What got inserted above it, really, in this second week, was the Frozen Tale short story, Cheaper by the Dozen, Secrets of Sulphur Spring, Cheaper by the Dozen 2. They're not even new. But those are the things that got kind of added on. Except for Cheaper by the Dozen 1 and 2. So it's not like a whole bunch of amazing new stuff got added and people went and flipped off The Mandalorian to go watch that. Okay, and that's kind of the other thing is like you see Moana fall down a little bit as well. Same with Frozen and Frozen 2. But again, it's a matter of how far it fell. 5 spots is a lot. And then they go on. You might be thinking that 17th isn't that far down the list for a show whose season 2 finale aired on December 18th. This is where it gets kind of interesting too. Mandalorian was ranked 14th for the week ending in April 4th, 2020, following the season finale of the first season on December 27th. Okay? That's kind of big. That is a trend. That is a precedent. Mandalorian, last time it ended, was in the 14th spot for a while. Now, 3 spots, not a big deal. Still lower. And faster. In fact, for the week ending in April 12th, 2020, it was ranked 3rd. So it shot back up. Staying 3rd for the next week. So again, it's very high for a long time after its first season. But would eventually fall to 17th at the end of April for the week ending in April 26th. But that's 4 months following the season finale, not 2. That is an absolutely valid point. If you want to go back to the week ending March 29th, which appears to be then what's on Disney Plus began tracking the trending charts, The Mandalorian is still ranked 9th and The Clone Wars is 3rd. Shows ahead of The Mandalorian were Frozen 2, The Simpsons, The Clone Wars, Mickey Mouse Funhouse, Moana. See what I'm saying? Moana, over and over. Frozen, Toy Story 4, and Aladdin. 2019 edition. So, that fell. If that never gets mentioned again, because nobody cares about these stupid live action remakes, but that's another topic. Definitely looks like firing Gina Carano has negatively impacted both The Mandalorian and The Clone Wars on the trending tab. One has to wonder just how many people have canceled their subscriptions, etc., etc. So, to me, this is interesting. It shows a potential for a real impact of Gina Carano being fired, outside of a bunch of people on YouTube and a bunch of people on Twitter complaining about it. Because the only way this kind of behavior changes is by taking away the money. And if people aren't putting their money where their mouth is, and at least not watching Star Wars related stuff, because they do notice that, then it doesn't really matter if they complain a lot. But we don't know yet the real impact of this firing, because no new Star Wars stuff has come out. And that's what's really going to tell us. And not a new show, but The Mandalorian coming back. If The Mandalorian comes back and its viewership is not significantly high or increased over what it was in Season 2, that alone is a problem, because people should be really excited for it after Season 2. If it falls, and it falls noticeably, there's your impact. Now, as far as this trending tab thing, I think it's a potential indicator, but I don't think we know enough yet. Falling 5 spots is pretty significant. Falling 2 months faster than the previous season, given how popular Season 2's ending was, pretty significant. But do we know enough yet? No, we don't. I think it'll be very interesting to keep an eye on, though. Because there's a real potential here that Disney has completely destroyed everything The Mandalorian built in one firing. The Mandalorian was bringing people back who had said, no, I'm done. And then they fired Gina Carano, who is immensely popular on the show and has a huge fan base, and they fire her for stupid reasons. If this holds true, and if we see a collapse in the ratings, they've destroyed all the goodwill they built up and could easily cripple their own show. And why? For politics, for political nonsense. Who cares? This is the problem with Disney. They have no heart. They have no soul. It's all corporate crap, and it's all politically correct, politically activist crap. Because they think that's going to make them money. But at this point, they've got to be true believers too. Because if you're being an activist in your entertainment because you think that's what people want, and then you lose money on it, you eventually correct course, but they haven't. And Kathleen Kennedy is a huge problem at Lucasfilm. The problem, really. I think potentially if you get rid of Kathleen Kennedy, you might be able to pull some of this back. But if they've done the damage we all think they have with firing Gina Carano, I don't know that you can bring it back from that. The Last Jedi made a lot of people very angry. And then the reaction to people being angry made people angrier. and then bad product made people walk away. And then you start to pull it back, and then you smash it again. And a lot of people are willing to forgive you once, but forgiving you twice for destroying something they love, that's a bridge too far for most people. So if this reaction to Gina Carano being fired is real, we'll see it pretty quickly. As soon as The Mandalorian, I think, comes back for season 3, we'll know within a couple episodes. So I'm very interested to track that. I think this article is interesting, but I think they're drawing some conclusions a bit quickly. Put it that way. But if you like the video, hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I will see you next time.